It is 1 p.m. Pacific Time, 2 p.m. Mountain Time, 3 p.m. Central Time, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Western European Time, 10 p.m. Central European Time, 11 p.m. Eastern European Time, midnight further Eastern European Time, and we are live on YouTube. Welcome and God bless all in the chat. Uh, I am very happy to see that there are already some people in the chat. And I'm very happy about that. Remember that I live stream every Saturday, the same time as today, and sometimes I do midweek live streams on Tuesdays and Thursdays, like today. I don't think I will live stream on Thursday, but I will live stream from London on Saturday, which I look forward to. I will also have a studio guest on Saturday, and I intend to make a video or two while in the UK, so keep following this channel. If you're not a subscriber already, please subscribe to this channel, and please let other people know that I am live streaming. Share this live stream on social media, send it to a friend, to a relative, to anyone who needs to watch this, and get a sane conservative perspective. Again, thank you all, and God bless you for being here. I'm very grateful about my audience for being able to do these live streams, for being able to produce videos, to connect with my audience, and for the channel growth that I have been seeing for the last almost 15 months. Remember, without you, I would not be able to do what I do. If you want to support my work, you can send a super chat. Just click the little dollar sign under your name in the chat and send whichever amount you want. It's all greatly appreciated. I will read out all super chats as long as you keep them clean. No anti-Semitism, no real racism, no incitement to violence, and we're all good. I don't want this channel to get flagged. Also, in case you wonder, anti-Islam is not racism. You can also support my work through PayPal or Patreon. Just check the links in the information box under this live stream. So I would like to start today by telling you sort of a funny story. A few days ago, I met with a friend of mine at a pizza place in Oslo. Over pizza and coffee, we discussed Oslo City Councillor, Green Party politician Eivind Trædal. Trædal recently participated in a Norwegian TV debate where he was one of the two people representing the left, while Hans Rustad of the Norwegian alternative media site Document.no and Helge Lurås, editor of the Norwegian alternative media site Resett.no, represented the right. In that debate, Eivind Trædal denounced them as racists for publishing articles about the very real clash of civilizations going on in Norway and the West, including the clash with Islam. As my friend said to me, according to Trædal, 96% of the Norwegian population are racists. I agreed with him. A man at the neighboring table then started talking. He turned to us and he started talking. And he said some pretty undiplomatic words about Eivind Trædal. And he also pointed out that Trædal used to be a member of the Young Communists of Norway before becoming a Green Party member. This guy did not like Trædal, and understandably so. One of the members of the silent majority had just spoken. By the way, this guy was sitting with a woman that we assumed was his wife, and she was of East Asian background. We thought maybe she was a Filipina. So that was interesting and fun. That regular Norwegian, who most likely was not a racist, told us his opinion. So, okay, now we have 12 people watching, and I think that's great news. So thank you all for being here, and let's have a look at our next story. On August 18th, 2017, Abderrahman Bouanane, sorry, pronunciation. Anyway, this guy, he stabbed 10 people at Turku Market Square in Finland, yelling Allah Akbar. And as you might know, I made a video on it the very same day. And that video is one of my most popular ones still. Finland was hit by the religion of peace. One of the victims, a man named Hassan Subier, tried to stop the stabber. That put him in a wheelchair. Swedish mainstream media tried to make a point out of this heroic man's first name of Hassan. However, as Ken Sikorsky's site Tundra Tabloids was able to reveal in December 2017, this hero is not a Muslim but a Christian. His full name is Paul Hassan James Subier, and Subier, who is a British citizen, has an ancient Egyptian cross tattooed on his arm. The trial toward Abderrahman Bouanane began in Turku, Finland yesterday. Subier is there and he has said that he will be present during the entire trial. District Attorney Hannu Koistinen demanded a lifetime sentence for Abderrahman Bouanane. Koistinen thinks that Bouanane is guilty of 2 murders and 8 attempted murders committed in terrorist purpose. The defender, of course, denies this. The trial is being interpreted to Arabic. As you probably already know, I have a close relationship to Finland, so when this happened last year, I was really angry and saddened by it. I believe that my comment on the Turku stabbings is one of my more emotional videos, actually. I was furious over what happened to Finland, the birth country of my paternal grandparents. When it comes to this trial, I hope that justice is served. For all I care, they could lock this guy up on water and bread and throw away the key. Seriously. So that was sort of the first or maybe second story. We have 19 people in here, and I'm very happy about that. So remember that without you, I would not be able to do this. So thank you all for being here. And let's look at Hungary. A few days ago, there was a general election in Hungary. This was an interesting election, also from a Swedish perspective. Sweden was used in the election debate as a warning example of what multiculturalism leads to. You know, when I was in Gdansk, Poland, a few weeks ago, I was watching TV one morning in my hotel room. I found an English-speaking news channel, and they were in Budapest interviewing people about the upcoming election. I remember them interviewing 2 Hungarian women who said that they wanted Orban to stay in power, and they specifically mentioned being safe in Budapest, the capital of Hungary, and that Budapest was not like Sweden. I found that to be very interesting. I wasn't the only one who reacted, though. The Swedish Minister for Education, Green Party spokesperson Gustav Fridolin, later went to Hungary to meet with the opposition and to participate in Hungarian media. In Hungary, Gustav Fridolin claimed that the rumors about Sweden are exaggerated and that there are no no-go zones in Sweden. He was basically parroting what his boss, Prime Minister Stefan Löfven, claimed in Washington, D.C. earlier this year. Well, a lie is a lie, no matter how many times the lie is stated, and no matter how many people believe in it. After the hand grenade attack on the police station in Rosengård, Malmö police now wants to move the police station out of that part of Malmö. So apparently, Malmö police thinks that Rosengård is a no-go zone. And according to the Swedish police, there are over 50 no-go zones in Sweden. I have seen higher estimates, but this is what the police says. So, how did the Hungarian election go? Well, thank God. The Hungarians did not listen to that Swedish minister. They re-elected Viktor Orban as prime minister. Orban is now supported by 2/3 of the Hungarian parliament, and Hungary guards the border towards the Islamic invasion. Because make no mistake about this, immigration without assimilation is an invasion. Migrants who do not assimilate are not migrants, but settlers. And neither Viktor Orban nor I want Islamic settlements in Europe. So thank God for Viktor Orban, thank God for Hungary, and may the Lord bless Hungary. I am perfectly aware that Orban is not a perfect man. No man living on this earth right now is. But I stand by him. He might very well be the Churchill of our time, or the Trump of Europe. So these were the first stories I had. And I'll have a quick look at the chat again. Now we have 21 people watching. That's wonderful. And well, hello to everyone. Let's see, there's a bunch of people. Let's see. Ripataya, who is Finnish, by the way, says, stabbing happened 4 kilometers from my home. That was the first collective Finnish experience from blessings of multiculturalism. Yeah, exactly. So I'm very sorry about what happened in Turku last year. And I hope nothing like that will happen again. So I hope Finnish politicians, well, will wise up and stop listening to Sweden, whatever they do. So if you want to support my work, you can send a super chat by clicking the $ under your name, or you can donate through PayPal or Patreon. There are links for that in the information box below. You can also order merchandise. There's a link for that too. I will read out all super chats as long as you keep them clean. I don't want this channel flagged, you know. And I am, as I said last time, trying to create critical mass for a positive change, for sane conservatism, for Judeo-Christian Western civilization. So let's talk about Sweden. Recently, the Swedish Prime Minister Stefan Löfven who is a social democrat, stated in an interview with the mainstream media outlet Dagens Nyheter that paperless migrants have to leave Sweden. Those who got a no must leave the country. Otherwise, we have no credibility in our reception of refugees, Löfven said. Well, that's all fine and dandy, but let me point out that there is a general election coming up in Sweden in September this year. And let me point out that Löfven said 2015 that, quote, "In my Europe, we don't build walls," close quote. However, reality hit him and his administration pretty fast. A few months later, in early 2016, Anders Ygeman, a social democrat who was Minister for Home Affairs back then, said that Sweden would deport 80,000 of the people who applied for asylum in Sweden during 2015. Well, most of these people are still in Sweden. So I don't trust Stefan Löfven on this. I think that he is trying to win votes for the election, or at least he is trying to stop losing votes. He is scared of people voting for the Sweden Democrats, to put it that way. We have seen the same from the pseudo-conservatives in the moderate coalition party. But neither the Social Democrats nor the moderates are willing to even talk to the Sweden Democrats. As long as the Social Democrats are tied to the Left Party and the Green Party, and as long as the moderates are tied to the so-called non-socialist parties in the alliance, the Centre Party, the Liberal Party, and the Christian Democrats, there is no solution for Sweden. What needs to happen in Sweden is that the Social Democrats and the moderates start working things out with each other, that they cut the ties to their support parties, and that they accept support from the Sweden Democrats for stricter migration policies. If this does not happen after the next election, I see no hope whatsoever for Sweden. And this is sad. I'm not happy about this. I use Sweden as a warning example, like Sweden was a warning example in the Hungarian election debate, like Sweden is a warning example in the Norwegian debate and in the Danish debate. Like President Trump pointed out, look at what's happening in Sweden. I use Sweden in the same way because Sweden is a warning example, not because I want it to be. If Sweden turns around, I will gladly start using Sweden as a good example. Yeah, and absolutely. Paula P says, hit the like button. Please help Swede out. Well, thank you for reminding us, Paula P. Yeah, absolutely. Hit the like button. And we have 22 people watching, and well, that's great. We've only been online for a little more than 10 minutes, so I think that's great. Paulo Forever 2 says, question about Swedish women. According to you, what are the positive and negative attributes of Swedish women? That's an interesting question. I think that the problem with women in Sweden, and that's also the problem with men in Sweden, is that well, both women and men have been they have been shaped by political correctness and by third wave feminism, which means that men are emasculated and women try to act like men, and you just get this chaos. But of course, there are traditional men and women in Sweden still. There's always some people left, and that's great. So really, you are able to find some traditionalist women and men in Sweden, but they are rare. But they are there. So they are good, but well, you know, I really think Sweden needs Sweden needs conservatism. Oh, Sweden needs prayer. Assyrian King says, hello, Swede. Well, hello to you too. I'm looking forward to meeting you in person soon. And Ripataya just sent me a super chat. Thank you very much for your generosity. And he says, I am sad that multiculturalists did not wake up despite Bonan's terrorist attack. He stabbed Jehovah's Witnesses on purpose of killing Christians. That is what is told in Ilta Sanomat. Yeah, I mean, I'm sad to see that. I don't know. I mean, I agree. I don't know. How much do the West need to be pushed? How much do you need to push Western European countries before they will say enough is enough? I don't know. I've been waiting for Sweden to wake up since 2014. And every year I thought, no, they can't take any more now. Something has to happen. But Sweden moves very slowly. And, well, as you may or may not know, I actually started this channel because of a Finnish court case. I started this channel when I learned about the Sebastian Tynkönen trial, not the most recent one, or I don't know if he's standing trial yet, but he did stand trial in January 2017. And for those who don't know, Sebastian Tynkönen is a politician in the Finns party, and he had to stand trial last year for statements he made about Islam online. And if my memory isn't failing me now, he was sentenced to a fine of 300 euros for stating an opinion. And I mean, he wasn't inciting to violence as far as I know, nothing like that. He just stated his opinion on Islam. So I'm really sorry to see what happened, even to Finland. And because I grew up with Finnish war stories. My grandfather fought at the front in Karelia, and as I like to say, if some Russian soldier would have aimed better, I would never have been born. And then I think, so what was he defending? Why did they defend their native country from a communist invasion? And now they are giving away freedom of speech, and they are allowing Islam into the country. I don't get it. What happened? I mean, I get that Sweden does this because Sweden's done crazy stuff for, well, sort of forever. But I don't get Finland, and I don't get why the UK does it either. The UK fought Nazi Germany. The UK is in NATO. The UK stood with the West in the Cold War. So I don't know. Assyrian King says, we'll see you in a couple of days here in London. Yes, we will. And he also says, don't forget, last invasion of Europe by Muslims, we lost over 75%. Then Europe rose up. Yes, I know. So hopefully this will happen before it's too late. Ripataya says, I think Islam is religion of the devil, and I see Muhammad as the Antichrist. Well, yeah, absolutely. And absolutely. I know there's a book called The Islamic Antichrist. I haven't read it, but well, I think Islam plays a role here, and it's not a good role. William Marshall says, the Finnish were/are excellent soldiers. Yes, for all I know, that's correct. And I've been to Finland a few times last year and the year before. I haven't been to Finland this year yet. Hopefully I will go at some point this year too. And the funny thing is, I always feel more at home in Finland than in Sweden these days. And I can't really explain why more than to say there's a different atmosphere. Even though I know there is all of this politically correct stuff going on in Finland, the air is still easier to breathe, in spite of all these crazy laws. And if you look at the World Values Survey, which is a map over different cultures and their values, you will see that Finland is more conservative than Sweden, more conservative than Norway, more conservative than Denmark. So I'm getting why I like Finland. The US is even more conservative, but that's a different topic. Paula P says, I fear that here in America, if people don't wake up soon, we will end up banning everything. Well, I absolutely see your point, Paula. The thing about America, though, or the United States, is that you have both the First and the Second Amendment, and the Second Amendment protects the first one. And I think that's a pretty good, efficient stopper for craziness. I mean, I know you have a lot of crazy stuff in academia, in your mainstream media, on the left coast, or well, the West Coast, and on the East Coast. And I might be wrong, but my impression of mainland America is that, I mean, except for academia, you're pretty sane. Ripataya says, our grandparents were men. They were real men. Yeah, exactly. Assyrian King says, after a woman complained on Muslims praying in Hyde Park, now it's banned. Yeah, I saw that video. That was interesting. Vladimir Ramirez says, hey everybody. Well, hello to you too. Let's see. Johan Fiss says, I was in Finland 1 year ago. And Vladimir Ramirez says, Russia has a lot of influence on Finland. I don't know. I haven't picked up on that one, but feel free to elaborate. Maybe Ripataya knows something. I haven't picked up on that one. So the trial started yesterday. So so that's interesting to see what happens with this trial. And really, I hope they won't let this stabber off easy. I hope they will sentence him. I mean, after terrorist legislation, I hope they will give him the strictest punishment by the law. Really, I mean, I know Finland doesn't have a death penalty, but I think they should give him lifetime in prison. And I don't know if lifetime in prison really means life or what it means. I mean, I know that in Sweden and Norway, lifetime means that you will still get out after a certain time, but it could be 12 years or 20 years or 30 years. But you know what I say? Lock him up on water and bread and throw away the keys. Actually, you could rent prison place in some country where it's cheaper than Finland, for all I care, because this guy does not deserve any luxury. And hopefully Finnish prisons are less luxurious than, for instance, Swedish and Norwegian ones, but they're probably still luxurious compared to a Russian or a Chinese prison. Vladimir Ramirez says, you can't have freedom of speech without the right to protect it. Yeah, that's right. I agree. Horses, did you know about Count Dankula? Yes, I heard about him. And, well, about Count Dankula, maybe it was in bad taste, but he shouldn't go to jail or pay a fine for having bad taste. I think these opinion laws all over Europe, in Sweden, in Norway, in the UK, in Finland, in Germany, I just think they're horrible, and that's why European countries really need a First Amendment, and then we need a Second Amendment to protect the first one, uh, because, well, in Germany you have people going to jail over Facebook posts. The same thing happens in the UK. The same thing could happen in Sweden. There are some cases. I don't know how they are going to go. You've had cases in Norway. I don't think anyone went to jail, but you had cases where people have been fined. And in Finland, with Sebastian Tynkkynen especially. And it seems like the system is really after him. And that's, what can I say? They want a scapegoat. And I mean, I don't get why people trust government. I mean, seriously. Uh, Especially Western Europeans and Scandinavians have this belief in government. We, and I don't mean me personally, and probably not even the Scandinavians or Western Europeans in the chat, but in general, a lot of people think that government is going to do good stuff for them. They will allow government to tax them almost into oblivion because they think, but government is going to give me all these benefits and they're going to make sure that everything's fine, but it's not. And I don't get how people can be so naive. Ripataya says, I hope that this terrorist Bonane would be placed in prison sleeping room with other inmates, preferably with big and strong debt collecting motorcyclists. Well, yeah, I can see that would not turn out great for that guy. He didn't look very I mean, I saw the pictures from the trial, and this terrorist, or well, whatever you call him, he didn't look large either. He looked like a pretty small guy, but maybe it was a bad picture. Paula P says, yes, Swede, this has been hard to hear about jail over opinions. This is why the gun grabbers here have me wanting to say, what's wrong with you? LOL. Yeah, exactly. And this is what I'm trying to explain to people in Western Europe, that when you can't defend yourself, you will end up in living in tyranny, or either first of all, you won't be able to protect yourself against criminals, and if government isn't doing its job, like, how did we get 50 plus no-go zones in Sweden? Remember, Sweden was used to be called a model nation. That wasn't really true, but well, Sweden was a model nation to the extent that Sweden was a very safe country. But of course, I don't agree with all the socialist policies they were trying to impose. But that's a different discussion. But it's not a model nation in any way anymore, and that doesn't only happen in Sweden. It's happening in other European countries too. Uh, and when you have these no-go areas and you can't defend yourself, and then the police is understaffed. In Sweden, there's a shortage of policemen or police officers, and people are leaving the force because of this shortage. It's sort of a bad circle turning worse, and they go to other jobs instead in private security and make a lot more money than they do as police officers. And on top of this, instead of trying to deal with the actual problems in Sweden, in Finland, in Norway, in Germany, in the UK, instead the government goes after the critics. And you get sentenced to a fine, or you might end up in prison like in the UK. I think actually the UK could be the worst example in Europe right now. Even worse than Sweden. I mean, what do you know? Who would expect that? But that's actually one of the reasons why I'm going to the UK, because I want to look at what's going on firsthand. I want to talk to people living in the UK. And of course, I will take all possible measures, security measures. I'm not going to interview people about touchy topics in public places. So, I thought about this stuff, of course. But the point is, I need to go to the UK and look at what's happening, because the UK is also a warning example, and I need to go there before, well, while I'm small enough to fly under a radar. Maybe I'm paranoid now, but I think I could get banned, just like they banned Lauren Southern and some other people. Let's see. William Marshall says it's the same Mo in most of Europe, which proves it's all part of a plan. I'm not sure what Mo means here, but I'd say there is a divide in Europe between the West and what used to be Eastern Europe, which more basically is Central Europe. I'd say there is the divide, and actually the countries who were under communism are now freer than the countries who were free. Ripataya says, I think the talk about the Russian influence is 70 to 85% hot air and official propaganda. Big boys here wish that Finland would join NATO. That is why there is talk about Russian influence. Well, maybe there is a Russian or two who wants to influence people in Finland or in the US or in Sweden. So what? Where am I going with this? Well, the left is trying to influence people all over the world too. George Soros was trying to meddle with the Hungarian election. He didn't do a very good job with that. Thank God for that. But he was trying to do that. And I think this narrative, this talk about Russian influence in all these elections, most of that is just, hot air. That's a good term. Most of that is just hot air. Like how the Russians supposedly got Donald Trump elected. Well, it's only been smoke so far. And I know that there's been discussions that, the Russians might try to influence the Swedish election. Okay, maybe. George Soros will too. I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist or anything, but there are people are trying to influence other countries, but most of it is the problems in the West is really our internal problems. We have political correctness. We have this narrative that's been set with us since the 60s, since 1968, with the baby boomers, or as we say in Scandinavia, the 68ers. And they were sort of in opposition back in 1968, but their leftist worldview has turned into the new narrative. That's the official worldview now, and they won't allow any voices that go against them. Well, that's how we got all these laws. Ripataya sent another super chat. Thank you very much. And he says, Russian influence in Finland is on par with Norway. Yeah, I think you're right about that. Uh, I assume you mean that Norway has just as much influence in Finland as Russia does, or maybe that Russia has as much influence in Finland as it has in Norway. In any case, I agree. And Mr. Geek Gamer says Russian influence equals it didn't go the way we wanted it to. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I guess it was the Russians who won the election in Hungary too, or maybe not. And when Donald Trump won the election in the United States, and that was before I started this channel, and people were complaining about how the Russians won the US election, I posted on Facebook and I said, okay, for the sake of argument, let's say that Russia actually won the US election. Well, I'm happy. I'm happy that Saudi Arabia lost. If someone doesn't get this joke, Saudi Arabia were sending lots of money to the Clinton Foundation. So, and no one was talking about that. I mean, apart from a few voices on the right of the right. I mean, people like me, basically. Paula P says, wow, those Russians are winning elections everywhere. Ha ha ha. Yeah, well, they have to be very good propagandists since, what can you say? Russia is not a very rich country. I mean, they have improved some financially in the last few decades, but they don't have the financial muscles to really have that much of an influence as people think that, or that some people think they have. They have nowhere near those financial muscles. And I'd like to go to Russia too, but they demand a visa, so I don't know. Maybe I'll go there one day. Ripataya says, I mean, both Norway and Russia have about equal amount of influence in Finland. Yeah, I agree. And the Norwegian writer Fjordman, the guy who had to leave Norway after the Breivik attack, because he was a counter-jihadist and he was blamed for Breivik, which was stupid. But anyway, he sometimes writes on Facebook that the biggest problem towards the Nordic countries is not Russia. The biggest problem towards the Nordic countries is Sweden, or the biggest threat. And the point of this is, if Sweden would collapse, let's say that Sweden turns into a failed state, and sadly I see that this is a real possibility. This might actually happen. And the Nordic countries, since the 1950s, we have an agreement of free movement between our countries. You don't need a work permit, you need nothing, as long as you have a Nordic passport. If you're a Swedish citizen, a Norwegian citizen, a Finnish citizen, a Danish citizen, or an Icelandic citizen, you can freely move between the Nordic countries. That's how my grandparents moved to Sweden. They didn't need any permits. They could just come and start working. No problems. And back then, the Swedish industry was screaming for people. So a lot of Finns moved to Sweden, even some Norwegians. But anyway, I'm getting off track. The point is, so let's say Sweden turns into a failed state, maybe in 10 years' time or 20 years' time, who knows? And let's say that the Nordic agreement is still in place. Well, what happens when the Swedish government stops paying benefits to people when things stop working in Sweden? Well, lots of Swedish citizens, Muslims and non-Muslims alike, are going to leave Sweden, right? They will go to Norway. They will go to Denmark. They will go to Finland. Some of them might even go to Iceland, looking for somewhere where the grass is greener. And that will be a real problem for the neighbors, a real threat. I'm pretty sure that, for instance, Turku doesn't want to take over the Muslim population of Stockholm. And I don't think Oslo wants to do that either. I mean, not if you think about it. And even the peaceful people who would move from Sweden, let's say that most people would be peaceful. Well, that would still be a big problem for the labor market. For instance, in Norway, if you suddenly have 500,000 Swedes coming to the country willing to work for a lot less than Norwegians because they just need to get out of their country, you will still have a lot of conflicts, and conflicts that are unnecessary because they wouldn't be there if you wouldn't have a collapsing country. So, I mean, I used to say the kick Sweden out of the Nordic agreement one way or the other. We just need to deal with this situation. And if Swedish politicians wake up now and start doing the right thing, maybe they can stay in this agreement. But if they don't, they need to go. I've been saying this for years. We have to protect our countries, really. Let's see. William Marshall says, "I wish Russia would win us an election here in the UK." Yeah, uh, yeah, that's kind of funny, but yeah, absolutely. Ripataya says, "Beware, the Russians are waiting under your bed. At least if you believe Hillary Clinton or Finnish journalist Jessica Aro." Maybe I should Google this Jessica Aro then. I haven't seen any Russians under my bed today, but maybe they snuck in when I was out buying groceries or something. Wildflower says, "Hi all." Well, hello to you too. Let's see. Ripataya says, "It is like you would give packet of candy to your children when only 5 from 100 candies just might kill your children." Something like that. And Vladimir Ramirez says, "Do you think Norway and Finland should invade Sweden?" I, I do not see a big mass awakening in Sweden. Well, I'm not arguing for any invasion, but I say that you can't have a country like Sweden in the Nordic agreement with open borders towards the other Nordic countries when Sweden have their crazy policies. You just can't. So in this case, I'm all for free movement of people between, for instance, Finland and Norway, Norway and Denmark, Denmark and Finland, all of these to Iceland, no problems. The problem is Sweden here. The other Nordic countries, they have their problems, but they're not as insane as Sweden. Sweden is more than just 1 degree crazier than the other ones. Sweden is really on the very far end. Just Google World Values Survey and look at that map. Sweden is in the wrong corner, to put it that way. But what I think Norway and Finland and the other ones should do is they should kick Sweden out of the agreement. They should say that this is now null and void. We can't have you in this agreement when you can't act up. I I think there is a silent minority in Sweden, maybe even a silent majority. I don't know. Uh, but the problem with Sweden, Vladimir Ramirez, is that Sweden is a very conformist country. Sweden has been this way for the last 500 years, since Gustav I or Gustav Vasa took power, and he centralized the country, and he made sure everyone was marching in the same lines. And because he nationalized the church, and he didn't do this out of some theological conviction. He did this because he didn't want to have the Pope in Sweden. I mean, he didn't want to have the Roman Catholics in Sweden because the Catholic Church was competing with him over power. That's why he became a Lutheran. And I'm not a Catholic, so that's not my point. But my point is, he did this for the power. And then he nationalized the church. He stole a lot of the church goods, and he decided that the priests, who were now civil servants under the Swedish kingdom, he decided that the Swedish priests had to read every Sunday. They would have to read out what the government wanted them to say, or what the king wanted them to say. If there was anything the king wanted to get through to the people, the priests would say it in church on Sunday. And back then Sweden means both Sweden and Finland. And I'm saying Finland should be very happy that in 1809, when Russia conquered Finland and Finland became a grand duchy in the Russian Empire, or the Russian Tsardom, well, there's a lot of Swedish culture in Finland. There's a lot of Finnish culture in Sweden. But I think 1809 made sure that Finland would develop in a different way than Sweden, and they should be really happy about that. Let's see. Paula P says, "I will pray for things to get better." Oh, okay. Yeah, we should all pray for each other, for Wildflower and each other. Horses. Do you see Americans or foreign reporters in Sweden after New Year's Eve? And I don't see many reporters at all. I know there's been, yeah, I know Tim Pool went to Sweden, and that's kind of what he was more or less red pilled in Sweden, which is interesting. Let's see. Ripataya says, if Finland is retaken by Finland loving nationalists, I think we should go and liberate Swedes in case of civil war. Problem is having enough equipment and manpower to cleanse Sweden from Islam. Yeah, you could say that because when I discuss with Norwegians, sometimes I take the other stance and I say, well, there is one and only one reason why Norway should help Sweden if Sweden collapses. And the one reason that Norway should do this is because a Swedish collapse will be very harmful for Norway. Not because Norwegians should feel sorry for Sweden or anything like that, but just out of pure self interest. And I mean, the same goes for Finland, even for Denmark, for all the neighbors. So, yeah, I agree. Mr. Geek Gamer says, can we kick Germany and Austria out of the EU for disregarding EU laws during the migration crisis and then making threats to Poland for refusing to comply with EU directives on resettlement? First of all, I actually want to abolish the EU, but I assume you mean that, well, Germany and Sweden, they sort of invited the migrant stream to Europe. So, in short, in this case, I will stand with Poland, uh, but I mean, I want the EU abolished, and I'll think about this for a while. Supernova says, "Hello, Swede." Well, hello to you too. I'm happy to see you here. And we have been here for 40 minutes now, about, and we have 21 people in here. That's great. Last time I had a lot of people, but last time we had the Münster attack, and I was told I was the only one who was live streaming about the Münster attack, which is interesting. I mean, I thought that was a big thing. Ripataya says, Islamist Sweden is an existential risk for the survival of our homeland and culture. Well, exactly, that's my point. And that point is valid for Finland, it's valid for Norway, it's valid for Denmark, it's valid for everyone who is too close to Sweden. So, Sweden needs to wise up. And if it doesn't, Sweden is the big threat to its neighbors, really. And I mean, I'm not happy about this. That's just the way it is. I mean, some people in Norway think it's crazy when I advocate that Sweden should be kicked out of the Nordic agreement and that we should impose border controls to Sweden, that we should make sure to vet people coming in from Sweden. And they say, aren't you a Swede? And I say, well, yeah, I'm ethnically Swedish, or actually ethnically Swedish and Finnish, grew up in Sweden. I have lived in Norway for 12 years. I have a Norwegian passport. And I'm looking at this from what I consider a rational point of view. This is what's going on in our neighborhood. And we don't want that to happen here. And Norway has its own problems, well, just like Finland and Denmark. And we need to deal with our own problems. And having a neighbor like Sweden, that just won't help. Stephen Cray says, hi, Swede. Well, hi to you too. And Supernova says, I'm watching you from work again. Hi, people. Okay, well, I hope you're having fun at work, or, well, thank you for watching. Let's see. William Marshall says, Swede, do you go to gun ranges in the US when you visit? It's always one of the first things I do when I get there. Oh, that's interesting. Don't you need a license or something? I don't have a gun permit. I assume I need to get one. I don't know how that works. Maybe I should ask my American friends. I missed what happened to Wildflower, but I hope whatever happened just works out. So we'll pray for you. Uh, but William Marshall, I think actually all of the Americans that I know or that I hang out with, I think all of them are pretty much pro Second Amendment. So I probably wouldn't have a big problem. I could just ask them how these things works in that specific state in the U.S. and they'll probably be happy to tell me. Oh, okay, Wildflower, you lost your dog. Oh, I'm sorry about that. That's sad because well, dogs are really loyal friends. I haven't had a dog of my own, but I have lived with dogs earlier in life, so I know they are very good friends. William Marshall says no permit needed at a range. Okay, okay, good to know. Well, I'll check that out next time. Next time in the US. I don't really know when I'm going next time, but I'm working on it. Not the Hauken says hello. Are you Norwegian? Well, I'm a Norwegian citizen, but I'm ethnically Swedish and Finnish. Grew up in Sweden, so whatever you make of that. Uh, if I try to claim to be Norwegian in Norway, people will call me a Swede, so I don't know. Ripataya says, in case Swedes come into Finland as refugees, I think that knowing from refugee Swedes who is ordinary man, who is nationalist, and most important, who is leftist SJW, in order to kick out SJW from Finland. Yeah, actually, Ripataya, I have been telling my Polish viewers something similar because I have been getting comments to some of my videos from my Polish viewers, and they have said things like, you will be welcome in Poland, and I said that thank you very much, but make sure to to vet everyone who comes to Poland to make sure you're not getting the wrong people. You don't want people who turn Sweden into a mess. But fine, take the sane conservatives and don't take the other ones. Let them deal with their problems, with their mess. Let's see. Gent Jika says, "Hello all. Hello to you, Gent." And Gent, today I was looking at your emails. I haven't read those books. No, that's pretty much of it. Pretty much. So I haven't had the time. I will look at it, but it might take some time before I've done so because it will. Well, it's a lot, and I've been busy because I always have all these things to do. Oh, Mr. Geek Gamer says, I came a little bit late, but what is the Swedish peeing playing tough thing about? Oh, in short, it's about the Swedish Prime Minister. He recently said that so-called paperless migrants need to leave Sweden, so he wants to kick out illegal aliens. But I don't trust him because I think he's just saying this because there's an election coming up. So he's playing tough now not to lose votes. Basically, that's what I think is going on. Not the Hauken says, I'm from Norway. Uh, if you live in Norway, you're Norwegian. That's just the way it is. Uh, if you like to watch people play, check out my channel. Uh, okay, not the Hauken. I could respond to you in Scandinavian, but I keep it in English to make sure everyone understands. And the thing is, well, sure, by your definition, I'm Norwegian, and I'm happy to have a Norwegian passport, so no problems there. And well, sure, people can watch your your, your channels, no problems. And hey, share this video on social media, uh, and we're all good. Okay, that's an interesting comment. Vladimir Ramirez says, exactly. Certain people think just because you're white, then they are conservative, which is not the case. Well, I don't think conservatism has a color, to put it that way. I've met sane conservative black people, and I met insane SJW white people, and of course the other way around too. But I'm just saying, sanity and conservatism comes in all colors, just like insanity comes in all colors. Of course, I would say that some of these things are connected with culture, but that's something else. Rif Bataya says traitors are not welcome as refugees here. They are much more dangerous than genuinely peaceful Muslims because they are plagued with culture Marxism. You are onto something there, Rif Bataya. Uh, the problem with Islamic immigration isn't necessarily the first generation. The problem is often the second generation, the generation that's born in the West, that are looking for their roots, and who might get radicalized because they find Islam, and instead of doing maybe the version their parents might have might be much more non-practicing, but what they find is hardline Islam. So that's the problem there. But when it comes to cultural Marxism, well, it's the 68ers, as I call them, or the baby boomers. They have their ideas, and they, I mean, this. I guess you could say that if the map doesn't fit with reality, they go by the map, even if it's not functioning. Let's see. Vladimir Ramirez says, I'm specifically talking about the alt-right. Okay, point taken. No problems. I think we agree on that one. Paulo Forever 2 says, do you think that the chemical attack in Douma, Syria is a false flag attack? To be honest, I don't have an opinion on... Really, I don't have an opinion on that attack because I'm not an expert on Syria and I haven't looked into it. What I could say about Syria is I hope that Assad stays in power. Not because I necessarily think that Assad is a good guy. I think he's most likely a bad guy. But if you depose Assad, you will get the same situation as you got in Libya. Maybe you depose a bad guy who keeps everyone in check, and instead you get civil war, anarchy, the Islamic State, stuff like that. I much prefer to have a secular authoritarian figure like Assad. And I also know that the Christians in Syria prefer Assad to the alternatives. So I will go with Assad here because I think the alternatives are just a lot worse. Let's see. Margaret Mary says, I know Assyrians from Turlock and Modesto Antar family. Well, Assyrians and Syrians are not necessarily the same thing. Assyrians could also be called Syriacs, and they are usually Christians, while today's Syrians are mostly Muslim. So it depends on what you mean by Assyrians here. There is a large Assyrian population in Sweden, they are descended from Christians who fled Syria and Turkey a few generations ago, and many of them are very critical of Islam and of the migration policies in Sweden now. Oh, of course, there's a comment to Assyrian king to his name. Oh, of course. Oh, well. Anyway, Margaret Mary says Christian refugees from Iraq. Yeah, yeah. I met a few Christians from Iraq, and I mean I don't have a big problem with them. I mean, you could still argue that there are some cultural differences, and the planned cultures is a problem. But I have yet to meet a single Middle Eastern Christian who tries to impose Sharia in the West. So if I get to pick between Assyrian Christians or Syrian Muslims, I will go with the Assyrian Christians, to put it that way. So I am preparing to go to London shortly, not today, but shortly, and that will be interesting. So hopefully everything will just go fine. I mean, if you're a praying person, you can always pray for my flight, and especially for me to be let into the country. I don't think there will be a problem, but I am getting a little paranoid from all the people that have been stopped from entering the UK. So if I'm asked by border control in the UK why I'm there, I will say vacation, which is true. It's not the full truth, but it's a part of the truth because I will go and look at some touristy things, and I intend to make a travel video from London, just like I did from Poland. So that would be great. Paula P says, I will pray for you to have a safe trip. Thank you very much. Vladimir Ramirez says, no, Assad is a good guy for the standards for a Muslim country. I don't think Islam is compatible with democracy, so a strong man ruler is the best option, in my opinion. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Ripataya says, I don't wish even peaceful Muslims to Finland as refugees from Sweden. They have a home where to go. Crisis situation. These SJW Swedes probably try to hide SJW past and play common Swede. Risks for us. Yeah, that's a risk. Um and I agree. I mean, there. Yeah, absolutely. Margaret Mary says, "Why are you going to the UK?" Well, first of all, I'd like to see London. I haven't been there since the 90s. And second of all, I wanted the opportunity to talk to some of my British viewers and make a video or two about the British situation from the British ground. And so that's great. And I need to go there while I can still fly under the radar. So and also I like to travel, and I need to go to some of these countries while they still let me in. I mean, I can always go to Poland. I assume that Poland, for the foreseeable time, I don't think Poland will turn SJW and start denying me to enter the country. But it could happen with the UK. It could even happen with Norway, or I mean with Sweden. So Mr. Geek Gamer says, last time I tried to enter Norway, I was asked questions I'm not usually asked. Okay, can I ask what kind of questions? Vladimir Ramirez says, London is already a white minority population, so be very careful. Well, yes, I know. And as I as you probably know, I don't think color in itself is a problem, but of course cultures and especially Islam is a big problem. And yesterday I was watching a video. What was his name again? I'll see if I can find it. I, the video, okay, or I think it was probably a little mixed, but he presented himself. He said that he was being called a transphobic coconut. That tells you a lot about the left's how the left speaks. By the way, let's see if I can find it. Oh, David, I good because I wanted to know who this person is, and what I found out was that this guy is actually a member of the London City Council for UKIP. Uh, yeah, so that was interesting. Stephen Cray says, "Go to Luton." Oh, we'll see. I should go to Speaker's Corner and see what's going on there. Horses Horse says, "What about Brit Girl or Tommy Robinson?" Oh, I would be happy to meet Tommy Robinson, but we'll see. I mean, I sent him a message, but well, he probably gets a lot of messages. Mr. Geek Gamer says, they asked me about do I live here, how long, where, unsettled me because they have never asked these before. Oh, okay, I see. Yeah, I think I don't know when you visited Norway last time, but for the last few years, after the breakdown of the Schengen system, because the idea with Schengen was that the EU has a mutual border, and the countries at the border protect the border, and then you don't need any internal controls between the member countries. But once this outer border collapsed, you had border controls all over Europe, and that probably means that even the Norwegians got more careful. I mean, before you could take, for instance, you could take the ferry from Oslo to Copenhagen, and you didn't need to bring a passport or anything if you were traveling back and forth between Oslo and Copenhagen. But now you better have your passport with you, because you might get in trouble if you don't. And some people say that you don't really need your passport. Maybe not, but I'm not taking any chances. And I have been asked to show my passport when entering the ferry to Copenhagen and stuff like that. Mr. Geek Gamer says, I fly between the UK, Norway, and Poland several times a year. This was the first time, which made me concerned. Yeah, I think there is reason to be concerned about what's going on in Europe, or at least in Western Europe. I certainly hope that, first of all, I hope that the European border will be reestablished. I don't see how that's going to happen, though. And I certainly hope that countries like Poland and Hungary will stand their ground and make sure to protect their borders. Let's see. Ripataya says, is it possible to identify SJWs after the fall of Sweden? Can you reliably know who have been SJW based on their tweets and Facebook updates? In case of war, can these traces still be reliably found? That's a good question. I don't know. Hopefully. That's what I have to say about that. Hopefully. And I mean, I haven't made a secret of my past. I have mentioned it several times in my live streams and in my videos, that for 4 years I was walking in what I call an ideological and a spiritual desert, and I was basically a Marxist for all of that time. But eventually I wised up, and a lot of people will change their opinions, sort of. They will turn around without saying anything. But I have officially denounced my previous crazy views, and I will bring up my past as an example when I think that's necessary. I mean, but I don't need to talk about being a former Marxist all the time. But if it comes up, I'll say, yes, I believed in a lot of crazy stuff, and I don't anymore, and this is why. William Marshall says, Swede, what's your views on QAnon? Actually, to be honest, William Marshall, I'm not sure what that is. I haven't looked into it. Wildflower says, my brother lives in Bristol, UK. I'm not sure I want to visit him now. The UK is done. The UK is in bad shape. I hope it turns around. I don't know how that's going to happen. But, you know, one of the points I'm making about Western Europe, all these countries that are trying to suppress free speech, which is the UK, which is Germany, which is Sweden, Norway, Finland, and many other countries, when they are trying to make sure that people won't say things that they don't like, so-called hate speech. Well, the problem is that you get a situation that's very dangerous, and it can boil over. And because when people are able and allowed to voice their opinion without fear of being thrown into jail or given heavy fines, this works to make the level of conflict in society less. But when people can't voice their opinions without fear, you might actually build up to something that will be a lot worse. So, I mean, I don't see how the politicians we have in Western Europe now is going to see this, because they should have seen this by now. So I don't know. But what I'm saying is that things might get really, really dangerous, and I'm not happy about that. And I mean, of course, I support freedom of speech, because I support freedom of speech, really, because I think you should be allowed to voice any opinion peacefully. And I mean, of course, the limit goes somewhere at incitement to violence. That's why I say that we could close down mosques if they incite to violence against non-Muslims or against the wrong kind of Muslims. No problems, because that's incitement. But apart from that, you should be allowed to voice any opinion, including the stupid opinions. I mean, I want people who disagree with me to be allowed to voice their opinions. Paula P says, am I wrong, or are all of the countries who want to do away with free speech have refugees? Yes, specifically I think you could say that all of these countries are multicultural, or they have multiculturalist policies. And when people try to compare what's going on in Western Europe now with the United States, claiming that the United States is multicultural, well, maybe the United States is multicultural today, maybe. But the United States wasn't founded as a multicultural project. The United States was a melting pot. The same goes for Canada and Australia and places like this. You could say that these places were settled by Westerners. Absolutely. No, I have no problem with that statement. But they were not multicultural. They were melting pot societies with lead culture, with an Anglo-Saxon lead culture. So that's something completely different. These were Western nations. And you could come to the United States, for instance, as a Swede, or as a German, or as an Italian, and within a generation you would turn into an American. But the idea behind multiculturalism is completely different, because there's no melting pot in multiculturalism. The idea in multiculturalism is that you stay the same. You have your own society. So it's a segregationist policy, really. And once you start criticizing these policies, the government tries to silence you. I mean, that's the short version. Stephen Cray says, sound quality has gone crackly. Is it just me? I don't know. Please let me know. Alexander L says, I live in Cali. This state is crazy. Yeah, I think California, that's kind of the Sweden of the United States, I'm afraid. I'm sorry, but that seems to be the case. You have a lot of crazy stuff going on there too. An interesting thing that I have noticed is that I tend to attract an audience from very liberal places. But I mean, I'm attracting conservatives living in liberal places. Conservatives from California, conservatives from Canada, of course, conservatives from Scandinavia, from the Nordic countries, from the UK. People coming from all of these crazy countries who are kind of part of the, how can you put it? Well, the opposition to the craziness. Joe Anonymous says, not crazy, Stephen Cray, sounded scratchy. Okay, I'm sorry about that. I think it's probably my connection, and I've actually ordered faster internet, but it doesn't seem to help. Stephen Cray says, might be your new Polish headgear, dude. Okay. I don't know. Before, people have said that the headgear actually made the sound better. So yeah, you might have to live with this for a while. Could take me a while to work this out. I have someone who helps me with technology, but well, that person isn't here. That person is on the other side of the Atlantic. Gripataya says sound quality is getting bad now. Okay, it could be the connection. And you know, when I was in Poland, I think I had better internet at Poland, at my hotel room in Poland than I have at home, which is kind of scary, but that's the way it was. I'll see what kind of internet quality I will have in my London hotel room on Saturday. Hopefully that will be good. Stephen Cray says, normally the headgear sounds fine and your posts are usually crystal clear. Well, my posts are, that's different. I mean, I assume you mean my videos. In my videos, let's see, one moment. Well, my videos are produced with this thing, or, well, with this camera, or this camcorder, together with something called, oh wow, I can't remember the name of that program right now, but through an editing program anyway, let's put it that way. So when I make these videos, the sound is picked up by my camcorder, but live streams, I produce them through Google Hangouts, so they go through my laptop, go through the camera through the webcam on the laptop, and through whatever gear I have. So that's different. Check your plugs. Okay. Alexander L says, question, do you think it's too late for Sweden? I think time is running out. I think that the election coming up in September, that's pretty much Sweden's last chance to have a peaceful solution. After that, I don't know how to put this, I will just wait for things to get worse in Sweden after that. If the election doesn't, if Sweden doesn't get a miracle, let's put it that way. Stephen Cray says, your live streams, I mean. Oh, okay. Well, in that case, I don't really know. I think it's the connection that just goes back and forth. Wildflower says, I'm a young conservative from Southern California. It's a hellhole here. We call it California. Yeah, I would recommend you to move somewhere else in the Union as soon as you can. That's what I tell people in California, really. But I'm sorry to hear that, really. And California is an interesting example too. Whatever happened to California? California used to be a wealthy state in the Union, and Ronald Reagan was your governor, and then you started going downhill sometime after that, for some reason. Ripataya says, I would not hold my breath about good internet quality in London. Local Pakistani Muslim major have more pressing concerns. You're right, Sadiq Khan, he's, well, he was going to ban knives, I think, which is crazy. But I guess he thinks that's going to solve something. Of course, it won't solve anything. Mr. Geek Gamer says, I gotta go. Goodbye. Ha det bra. Ido Branosh. The last thing I guess is Polish. Well, goodbye to you too, and thank you for hanging out, and welcome back some other time. Let's see. Joe Anonymous says, Hollywood and the media happened to California. Yeah, I guess you could say that, but you had Hollywood for a long time in California, and suddenly they went nuts. A. Pinochet says, hello, just stopped by to say hi. Keep up the good work, Swede. Well, thank you very much. And yeah, thank you very much. I'm happy to hear that. Stephen Cray says, I really hope Sweden gets a grip of itself. Well, I hope so too. Alexander L says, I'm 1/4 Swedish, and this makes me really sad. What happened to the Swedes? Well, what happened to the Swedes in short is that the Swedes have been conformists for centuries, and then the Swedes replaced Lutheran Christianity with social democracy, and then they replaced this with political correctness. And since everyone in Sweden agrees, or let's say 80% of Swedes will always officially agree with each other, so it's very hard to be outside of this norm in Sweden. And this means that once you control the narrative, you can do a lot of crazy stuff to a country like Sweden. Margaret Mary says, amnesty for illegal immigrants happened with Reagan. Okay, that was stupid. I mean, I like Reagan, but of course, not all of, not everything he did was good. I mean, it's the same thing with all politicians. They will do bad stuff too. And that was a stupid move. Ripataya says, I think it is getting really late for a nice, democratic, and peaceful way of solving Sweden's problems. Sweden can't be saved even later, but that means saving Sweden through purifying fire, and that's nasty. Yeah, it will. Yeah, Ripataya, unless we see a real miracle in Sweden very soon, things will get nasty. And you know, it is now 1 day short of 5 months to the Swedish election on September 9th. And I expect to live stream on election night in Sweden to follow the election and maybe to have some studio guests or some Google Hangout guests or something like that. And maybe my book about Sweden will be done by then. You know, I'm writing on a book that I call Understanding Sweden. Maybe I will be done by September 9th and will be able to start selling my book before the election. We'll see. But yeah, I think you're right. It's in September. Alexander L. says, the Swedes made the world tremble with the Vikings. They had a powerful empire also much later. Great scientists and innovations you gave the world. What the age happened? Well, political correctness happened. I can't explain it any other way. Or well, conformism happened and then political correctness happened. Stephen Cray says, Swede, what do you think of the UK police stopping the Muslims praying at Speaker's Corner? I think it's a breath of fresh air. Well, actually, yes. I think that if you have a rule against praying, it should apply to everyone so that they're actually enforcing their laws. That's great. Joe Anonymous says, do you think the Swedish immigrants are better armed than the average Swede? Do you mean immigrants in Sweden, or do you mean Swedes who have immigrated to other countries? But I think I would say yes in both cases. There has been some disturbing things going on in Sweden lately. Swedish police found a lot of guns and arms in the south of Stockholm that they called weapons for war. And I will probably report on this in a few days. But yeah, it's a very disturbing situation. Margaret Mary says, my grandmother was from Vasa, Finland. Oh, that's interesting. Part of my family comes from, well, not from Vasa, but from that area of Finland. Joe Anonymous says, makes you wonder who will win if civil war breaks out in Sweden. Yeah, absolutely. Ripataya says, September is nice month for elections. 12th of September in 1683 in Vienna, John Sobieski gave the lethal blow to marauding Muslim hordes and saved Vienna and Europe. Hope that miracle happens in Sweden. I agree completely. Absolutely, Ripataya. Thank you. That's absolutely. I agree completely with that comment. So really, I hope things work out in September, because if they don't, well, let's put it this way. I'm happy. This might sound bad, but I'm happy that I don't have a Swedish passport anymore. Alleluia says, good evening to all. Good evening to you too, Alleluia. And welcome here. Let's see. Okay, we've been online for about 80 minutes. And before we end, let me just tell you that Norway has a new justice minister. Sylvi Listhaug had to leave, as you might know, and now she has been replaced by Tormikkel Vara, who belongs to the same party as her, the Progress Party, which supposedly is a right-wing populist party. Vara belongs to the party's libertarian fraction, or at least he used to. However, he doesn't want taxpayer-funded benefits migration. Vara belongs himself to an ethnic minority. The Queen people descended from Finns who immigrated to the north of Norway in the 19th and 20th centuries. Recently, Tormikkel Vara said that he does not want Oslo to get Swedish conditions, basically saying that he does not want us in Oslo to get no-go zones. Well, we already have no-go zones in Oslo too, but if Vara and the sitting Norwegian government can reverse this tide, I will cheer for that. So it's about time to wrap this up. If you have any closing comments, questions, anything. Oh, I see I'm getting some, so I'll look at them before I wrap this up. Alexander L says, question, does the Swedish churches, any Christian denomination, say anything about the migrant crisis and the rise of Islam? Maybe some of the minor churches, that's possible, but the large ones are pretty silent on this issue, sadly. And I'd say the large ones, especially the Church of Sweden, which is the old Lutheran church, has been taken over by leftists. But also the other ones, a lot of Swedish Christians, and it's the same with Norwegian Christians, are very afraid of saying things about migration policies for Islam because they are so afraid to be labeled racists, I guess. And I think it's stupid because as a Christian, you should by definition be anti-Islam. I mean, that's just the way it is. So as a Christian, you should be free to point out that Islam is a bad idea. And as a Christian church, you should say that the rise of Islam is not a good thing. I mean, you don't have to say anything nasty. You can just say that. Ripataya says, do you still believe in Sweden Democrats, or are they too soft and cocked? That's a good question. I think that the Sweden Democrats should have a harder stance on Islam. That's what I think. They don't. I think they are too left-wing when it comes to some of their financial policies, but I could live with these financial policies for the time being. But I think they should be harder on Islam, and they have some members who are. For instance, Richard Jomshof, who is a member of parliament for the Sweden Democrats, and by the way, he's part Finnish too. His grandparents came to Sweden too in the 1950s or something like that. He is pretty hard on Islam, but I think the party leadership, maybe they don't want to be that hard for some reason. I think they should be, but I still can't see any better alternative right now. Let's see. Hilton 11,000 says good evening. Good evening to you too. And Darius Wojtulevich says hello everybody. Hello to you too. Ripataya says Christian churches are plagued with curse of ecumenism. Ecumenism is the devil's plan for one world religion. Basically, I think you're right about that, and that's sad. And but you know, Ripataya, you know that God always saves a remnant. I mean, the church, the official church, might actually turn into an antichrist, but you will still always have a remnant. God always saves a remnant, and that's really one of the things that keeps me going, knowing that God will always make sure that his people are here until Christ returns. Stephen Cray says, night Swede, God bless. Well, God bless you too. Wildflower says, safe travels Swede, enjoy your stay in England. Well, thank you very much. Joe Anonymous says, do you have a live stream schedule? Yes, Joe. My official live stream schedule is that I live stream every Saturday. I'm not sure where in the world you are, but okay, here it goes. I live stream every Saturday, 1 p.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Mountain time, 3 p.m. Central time, 4 p.m. Eastern time, 9 p.m. Western European time, 10 p.m. Central European time, 11 p.m. Eastern European time, and midnight further Eastern European time. The Saturday one, that one is scheduled. Sometimes I live stream on Tuesdays or Thursdays, and I will do that on the same time as on Saturdays, but they are not set in stone. I might or I might not, but the Saturday one, I will always do that one, and I will make sure. I mean, there might happen things that I can't control, but if it's as long as it's up to me, I will always do the Saturday one. Paula P says, have a great night, safe travels, join my prayers. Thank you so much for a great show. Please keep up the good work. Well, thank you very much for your kind words and for your prayers. Thank you very much. And William Marshall says, best of luck, Swede. God bless everyone. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So, yeah. So thank you all for hanging out with me this evening. Check out my videos this week. And remember to tune in on Saturday, the same time as every Saturday for my live stream, which this Saturday will be from London, UK. So until next time, have a nice day, and God bless.